Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our commitment is to help, hope, and healing of our veteran family and our nation. I'm Jim Blythe, a U.S. Navy veteran and a certified senior advisor. Join us as we continue the mission of leadership and commitment to our communities and our great country. Why, you never know where we're going to go or who you're going to meet. We invite you to join in, plug in, and share in what we do. This is your Veterans Impact Show.
Hey, good day and welcome aboard. This is Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy veteran, Vietnam, aircraft carriers, aviation, Navy. Man, I got to tell you, I have a special program for you today. Also joining me, Gunner's Mate, U.S. Navy, Cedric White, Minister of Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, marriage counselor, amazing human being. And when I go to church and Cedric preaches, I go, Cedric, are you reading my mail? Because I got to tell you, it's great to have a minister who really understands what's going on. So thank you, Cedric, for that. Now, today, I've got something really special, guys. I have a retired U.S. Navy Admiral. Matter of fact, his credentials are amazing. He was Vice Chief of Naval Operations. He was Pacific Fleet Commander. He was 5th Fleet Commander. He is an amazing leader. But it all started way back when, as this young man had a chance to go to a college preparatory school. And this young man learned to seek excellence. So I want to introduce you to Fleet Admiral Patrick Walsh. Patrick, welcome aboard, sir.
Jim, Cedric, great to be with you today. Thank you.
Good to have you here, Pat.
Tell us your story of how you got to go to a Jesuit prep school and how it affected you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks for the opportunity to start where it really mattered. I'm the oldest of 6, grew up here in Dallas, and my father was working at a high school. And because he was working at a high school on a high school teacher's salary, there weren't many options available to us in terms of private school opportunities. But because the school that he worked at, Jesuit College Prep, offered faculty the incentive of bringing their own students there for free, I was able to go to Jesuit. And the impact that I subsequently describe is really the ripple effect of what happens when there's exposure at a very young formative age to discipline, to goal setting, to opportunities to excel in both athletics as well as academics, in an evenly balanced approach as far as the curriculum is concerned. So because I was able to attend Jesuit, I was able to compete for an appointment to Annapolis. I went to the Naval Academy, and after graduation, went into flight school, had a career in the Navy that I could have never possibly imagined myself. That included 3 graduate degrees, one of which is a PhD. Those opportunities in the classroom, that interaction with faculty and seniors who were mentors, that collegiality, that era of professionalism creates an environment to imagine a future that without that opportunity, you could never sort of put the pieces together in your mind of how it applies to me. And what applied to me in this particular case was a series of opportunities and the ability to grow in the armed forces and then really see the benefit of all of that from people I've never met. People I never met opened those doors. People I never met either paid taxes and paid for the tuition and the scholarship at Annapolis. People I never met opened doors for me and allowed me to grow. They invested in me without really knowing me, and I benefited from them without knowing them at all. And that takes me to a professional career full circle that brings me back into the Dallas area, where I work in one of the poorest zip codes in Dallas, providing secondary school choices for families that don't have choices.
That is such an amazing thing, because I grew up in Dallas. Admiral Walsh, and I know Dallas. My mother taught in the Grove. She taught at Mount Auburn. I'm not Mount Auburn. She taught at one of the elementary schools there. And I know what you're talking about. The Grove was a very poor East Texas people came in there. And so it wasn't advantageous to be in the Grove. And it was pretty tough. But one of the things that is so amazing to me is you took Diane and I on a tour of Cristo Rey, the school that you are the president of. And there were these kids standing up straight, wearing their uniforms, shaking, looking you in the eye, smiling. And you had pictures of these kids getting trophies and getting certificates. And it was like a cheerleader walking down the hallway that we're walking behind. And I got to tell you, that made a lasting impression on me, because what I wanted to do as we talked today was inspire other veterans, inspire men and women who are exceptional and who learned exceptional things in the military, to be able to impart that to the youth of today, to be able to imprint that and say, look what you can do with some discipline. Look what you can do with some leadership. Look at what you can do.
So, Jim, take that idea here, and if you wanted to boil it down to a message that you could share with other veterans, it's an opportunity to invest yourself in the life and the formative years of a young person, and give them an elevated sense of themselves, a sense of confidence and self-esteem that they may not already have. And with that comes opportunities for hope and for dreams. And if you can help someone dream a life for them, they will remember that forever. It's that kind of impact that you can have when you involve yourself in the kind of communities that you're describing.
Admiral Walsh, let me ask you, having such a prestigious career as you did, right? And all of the things that you accomplished, what brought you back, though, to Cristo Rey? What brought you back to this area? I know it benefited you when you went to Jesuit, but what made you want to do this to such a great level?
So, Cedric, you're really getting at the secret sauce of what's inside Dallas. I always thought about coming back to Dallas because of the sense of community that was here, and that was a big draw. I'm the oldest of six, as I mentioned, so I have brothers and sisters who live here. My parents were here until not too long ago, and it was this sense of community that I always wanted to come back to. The community was the one that made it all possible for me to imagine a very different future than one I would have imagined had I not been given those opportunities. And then with that, what do you do with it? How do you apply it? I mean, it's one thing to have a resume on a wall in terms of being able to look at what you used to do. It's another thing entirely to discern what is it that will now apply to the environment in a very different audience than maybe the one that I grew up with. But that's okay, because one of the benefits I think a veteran has, particularly a veteran of the all-volunteer force, is that you're always thinking about succession planning.
Right.
You're always being coached and mentored, even if you don't want to be coached and mentored, because the person who's talking to you is someone that's going to leave in 2 or 3 years, and you'll inherit that set of responsibilities. There's something about the way the veteran learns him and herself about how to find themselves, how to find their voice, and how to find their contribution to the broader national security mission. And with that, there's real personal growth that goes with it. And there's a sense of momentum while you're in uniform. And when that starts to run out, that's when you realize, okay, it's probably time to transition to a new chapter. But what do you do with all of that and all of those real life experiences? So it's one thing to study, but it's another thing entirely to have this experiential model where I did it hands-on. that I worked with people that had, specific challenges, and I helped them get through it. I helped perform as a team. I helped to think in terms of how the team collectively performs on a mission or some set of responsibilities. And with that, there's a lot of personal growth that goes with it. If you can carry that growth into transition into the private sector, then you can do what Jim has been describing and he gets so enthusiastic about, which is the country's already invested in the veteran. Now it's a matter of both the community realizing you got real talent sitting here on the sideline looking for a way to participate and finding ways to help veterans make that transition. That's the unique challenge about where we are today with veterans in transition. Traditionally, historically, we had come from an environment where most people had served, and therefore they could take a look at someone's career path and say, you're best suited for this position here. This will help you get started and generate kind of the incremental success that you need in order to now be able to envision, a future for yourself in the private sector. We don't have that today. We're part of that less than 1%. So we have to figure out how to come up with a new language that will help us translate what we've done into the minds of those who are serving in the private sector so they realize the kind of talent and potential that veterans have.
One of the things my pilots, we came back to the United States. I was in A4 Squadron. John McCain was one of my pilots. VA 163, very famous squadron. Quite frankly, I was given the opportunity to fly in the back seat of the TA-4. I got to know my pilots probably a little bit closer than most of the people in the squadron because I flew with them. In a matter of 4.5 months, I logged 160 hours. But each one of them was a mentor. Each one of them took time with me, and each one of them, then I began to realize to their divisions, whether it was airframes divisions or power plants or electronics or whatever in the squadron, they were spending the time with those guys as well. Not as hey, I'm an officer, I'm here to tell you what to do. No, they were like, okay, how can we do this together? It was amazing, the naval aviation leadership. And I don't know, Cedric, you were Black Shoe Navy. Pat and I were both Brown Shoe Navy. But the naval aviation community, I think, is different. Now, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think it really exudes leadership. And the lessons you learned in flying are amazing.
Well, I think just in the naval aviation experience itself, it lends itself to making it a very personal coaching experience. You have classroom training, but at the end of the day, it is the very close relationship between the student and the instructor that can either set the student up for success or make life very, very difficult. So learning how to work in an environment where there's very exact standards that we just simply can't violate, and getting everyone sort of on board with that kind of culture, I think it's an experience and one that you want to replicate as much as you can as you learn how to succeed in that kind of profession.
I'd like to tell a story. On about the second or third time I got to fly, we were going up to the bombing range at Fallon, Nevada. And you are very familiar with that. It's a bombing range that's about the size of Connecticut, just south of Reno. And the CO is up, or XO was up, and was talking through what we were going to do on this mission for training. The first and last thing he said is things are going to happen in the air. Whatever you do, never quit flying the plane. Mm-hmm. Many years later, I get my private pilot's license, and it was an ex-Navy commander who was my flight instructor. And he said, Jim, I know you've heard this before, but we're going to go up and we're going to do stuff, and I'm going to turn that plane upside down and backwards. Never quit flying the plane. That is also a metaphor for life. that so many people, and we talk about how we have so many veterans taking their own lives, they quit flying the plane. And what happens when you quit flying the plane? It's not pretty.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this is so important. I think it's also important that men like you, and when I read your resume, I'm like, how about 5 pages of Wikipedia? Because you sought excellence. You came from a family of 6 and you sought excellence in everything you did. You did exceptional things. You were an amazing pilot. How many carrier landings did you have, Admiral?
Just shy of 800.
Whoa! Cedric, how about that?
How about that?
Well, I mean, as long as the number of takeoffs matches the number of landings, then good.
That's very important.
Yes. And I can tell you, I've had a few, but not in a jet fighter. And that's a different world because you're coming in the amount of technical and skill and training, but also how your team pulls together for you is amazing. And when you're on that final, you're looking at that meatball and that guy, that LSO is down there directing you, you got to have total confidence in him, and he's got to have total confidence in you as well.
Yeah, and I've been on both sides of that scenario that you described both as an LSO as well as the pilot.
It's an amazing thing. Now, in all of this, in the training, and then you went and you got a doctorate, I believe, was it international relations, international studies?
Yes, after the first Gulf War.
Wow. All right. We're going to take a break in a minute and come back, and we're going to continue the conversation with Fleet Admiral Pat Walsh, who is really a PhD. So do I call you Admiral, Doctor, President? How about
you can call me what my family calls me, which is hey. Hey, you.
Okay. I want to say also a special thank you to DBTV Network for putting us around the world, and AUN that puts us on their 11 stations in California. I want to thank Symbiosis Integrative Health for all they do for us. And I want to say thank you very much to Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, which Cedric heads up. These are our sponsors. And then to Fairway Independent Mortgage that I work for, my NMLS number 311548. We're here for you. This is your Veterans Impact Show. Share it, get it out, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbiosis Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Well, welcome back to the second part of the Veterans Impact Show. We have a very, very special guest here with us, Fleet Admiral Patrick Walsh, joining Big Jim Blythe and myself here on the Veterans Impact Show. Admiral Walsh, I want to ask you, as I look at the list of just corporate partners that you guys have, you have a vast array of partners that come alongside of you and everything from banking to architecture for legal to real estate to consulting and education, the full gambit. And my question is, do your students have the opportunity to decide which of these areas they want to go into? How do your partners work with you? And I think what would be most important is, how does other companies get involved with Cristo Ray?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Cedric. For the audience, this is a fee-for-service model. So we are performing entry-level work. We're doing work that has to be done in the office. This is not an internship. It's not a project. It's showing up for work. And the model is that we present ourselves as 4 students with 1 full-time equivalent. So that full-time equivalent earns $40,000 a year from the end of August through the end of May. And that period, what that looks like is that our 4 students are rotating during the work week. So each student works 1 day a week, which means, 4 or 5 times a month, the student will be in the office environment. From the employer perspective, what that looks like is there's a student there every day during the work week. And that 40,000 divided by the 4 students is about 10,000 that goes towards a $20,000 annual education cost that we have to carry. And then I will fundraise the remainder. The partnerships that you described are 135 different job partners in Dallas. We have 11 shuttle buses, and we will leave the campus at 7:45 in the morning in shuttle buses and deliver students into the workplace. And then students will work with supervisors. We have account managers that now ensure contact with our job partners so that we provide value in the workplace. This is workforce development, and our contribution is to be part of solution sets for our corporate partners. There's a lot of development that goes on in the age group between 14 and 18. We work with the Department of Labor as far as standards are concerned, and that means that we put our students intentionally in a corporate environment.
Yes.
In days gone by, that may have looked like Xeroxing and filing. In today's environment, that can be working with spreadsheets, working with accounting, working with social media. So there's all kinds of needs that our partners, job partners have, and we try to address those needs so that they continue to hire us. So we look at ourselves as workforce development and bringing value into the firm. Part of that proposition is the question that you asked, which is how do we get a good match between the talents and experiences that a student has, as well as their interest, along with what the requirements are for a potential employer-employee relationship. We'll do intake forms in June with our incoming class so that we understand what sort of talents they have and what kind of interests that they have. And then we'll work closely with job partners to find the right match. And then comes draft day. Draft day, we run just like the NFL. And what we do is in early August, we introduce now our 120, 130 new students to their potential job partners. And what that looks like is parents are in the stands in our gymnasium. The students are led out by the Maverick Maniacs. So you have to be 350 pounds in a white tight t-shirt, bring a lot of bling and a lot of noise and a lot of energy into the gymnasium for these 14-year-olds who are absolutely stunned by all the noise that's going around. And then we have a faculty panel that will smack talk the class. And so they'll be saying things like, here comes Manny Moreno. Manny thinks he's going to be working at AT&T, but Southwest Airlines is going to make a move on him. And Southwest Airlines will be on stage with a ball cap and a pencil. Manny's parents will be in tears because Manny is now part of corporate America. Wow. Manny will be flabbergasted because the first thing he's going to hear from, his new job partner is, let me introduce you to your colleagues. I can't tell you the number of times I heard that, Cedric, as these young students are walking off stage, and the amazement in their eyes as they realize a word that they've never heard before.
Right.
Colleague. I have a professional colleague. So just to set the stage for the demographic that we're serving, and this is authoritative data that comes from census data, but 75217, as Jim described, the Pleasant Grove area, the median income there is $33,000. Average home value is $75,000. 46% of the population has a high school diploma.
Let me inject something just a second, because I've been in real estate most of my life. I'm in mortgage. The average home value in the city of Dallas is about $250,000. The average home value in the Grove was how much, Pat?
$75,000.
Okay, does that tell you, and what is within Skyline High School and the other schools, what is their average graduation rate? It's not that great. So we're going to have to take a break, but I'm going to bring you back and let Admiral Walsh describe the neighborhood that he is working in, and then you're going to hear an exciting fact. How many of them, what the percentage of them, not only graduate from high school, but go on to higher education and do great things. Because I'll bet you there are some war stories that are just great. So we'll be right back after this word from all of our partners. Especially, I want to tell you, Fairway Independent Mortgage, we're getting loans done in spite of the stand down and what's going on in the shutdown now. Also, Symbios, we're saving veterans' lives. So take a look at our veteransimpactshow.com, and I'll be right back.
Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Admiral Walsh, this is terrific. And when I say how much I'm glad that you've come aboard, because as you and I talked before, this is one of my passion, raising kids, raising that next generation up. And Cedric, I know you and I share that passion because I've helped you participate with kids. So let's continue. And we're describing the Grove. And a lot of people, even people in Dallas, don't know much about the Grove. So Admiral Walsh, I interrupted you as you were talking about what is the population of the Grove? Roughly 250,000 within the city of Dallas, correct?
Roughly that. I focus on the zip code, but we draw from upwards of 40 different zip codes. I mean, we pull students from the Garland area all the way out to Terrell, all the way down south as Corsicana and as far west as Grand Prairie. But predominantly, we are a means-tested school in the sense that parents will have to come in with IRS documents that document how much money they actually make. The charter for our school is that we're focused on students at the federal poverty line. So that means on average, our families make about $45,000 a year. So what we've described is really a preview of the future unless we do something really different. So with 46% of the population with a high school diploma, less than 3% of that population with an undergraduate degree, and less than 1% with an advanced degree, you can see that the investment's going everywhere else but Pleasant Grove. So it's a great place for a hubcap, for a muffler, for a used tire. But unless we do something different, and we're offering this school model as something that's different, you're going to see now a future that's very limited in terms of all the potential that remains locked up in Dallas and not seen. The amazing part about our story is what happens to this same demographic when you simply give them an opportunity. And what I mean by that is that these students are predominantly first generation in their family to graduate from high school. But did you know that all of our students for the last 3 years have graduated from a college prep program? Did you know that this school is nationally recognized for the number of advanced placement courses? And did you know that not only are all of the students getting an opportunity to go to a 4-year university, but they're finding out that they're getting those opportunities in February, and they're getting not just one, but on average 8. So how does that happen? Well, you take the combination of a college prep transcript that's got real academic rigor in it, and combine that with a working resume that shows actual experience in some of America's top companies. And you'll get stories like a student whose favorite course is advanced placement statistics, who works at Goldman Sachs for 4 years. So stack that up against anyone else that's applying to a 4-year university, and you can see why our students are in demand. And it's not like they learned that at home. because mom and dad are typically wage earners and didn't have the benefit of a high school graduation, much less going to college.
Admiral Walsh, you are giving these students hope and even a vision that normally would not come out of those neighborhoods, would not come out of those households. You're giving them even a picture of corporate America. Like you said, right, when the introduction is, let me introduce you to your colleagues. That's something that I'm sorry, you're not going to hear at the normal burger joint or something like that. And not only that, but it has such a what do I want to call it, a ramp for increasing the possibilities in that student's mind. I mean, I can only imagine the level of what starts to go through their mind when they were brought up in an area where they didn't see that. You're giving these guys more than hope.
Yeah, Cedric, if you can imagine, one way to have this conversation is just taking a camera and putting it on the perimeter of our school, looking across the street.
Yeah.
And that's a story of everything we don't have.
Wow.
And then that story's over, because
Right.
we take the camera and we're now going to reverse image it, and we're going to show you abundance. We're going to show you what happens when you unlock the intellectual wealth of the 495 students who are on our campus and 100 who are on a wait list wanting to be part of this. So the natural question that follows on is, what do they bring to this? How do they get selected? And let me just give you a sports metaphor. All of us have been around scholarship athletes. All of us have been around those who, whether it's good timing, good genetics, good coaching, hard work, first step quickness, muscle mass, it's all going to work out for them. The walk-on is the athlete that knows exactly what they don't have and are completely undeterred. It's all about grit. It's all about determination. I want to be part of the mission. I want to be part of the team. All I want to do is wear a uniform and be part of something like this. We are the walk-ons of Pleasant Grove.
I love it.
Attitude equals altitude,
Right.
doesn't it?
Yes.
And that was one of the things that I also learned about flying. Your attitude, your pitch attitude determines whether or not you're at the right altitude or the wrong altitude. You're imprinting them with an education. One of the other things is you're imprinting them with an activization of what they can do and what they can see, and giving them some goals and directions. Now, I got to tell you, when I went to Simply Marvelous University back in 1965, I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready. I didn't really have a dream. I didn't have a vision. And some of the classes that they were giving us, I was like, what? What are you talking about? I wasn't ready to go. But it was all about academics, not about hands-on. Where can you go with this? When I went down to the University of Texas, coming out of the Navy, man, I went to work. I went to work in real estate. I took classes that applied to what I was going to need in finance. And basically, I was working. And then I started going to some of the professors saying, how would you like me to bring some of the real estate or banking or investment leaders in Austin to teach your class? And they were like, yeah. It made it real, made it live. And that's what you're doing to kids, what, 14 to 18 years old?
Yeah. So from 9th to 12th grade, we've been around for 10 years, and we have about 700 plus alumni. The interesting part about the follow-on point that you're making, Jim, is that our students are learning how to manage time. So when our students go to college, they're graduating early. And with that, they're coming back into the Dallas community. The first class, which is the class of 2019 out of Cristo Ray, Dallas, is now forming a scholarship that they can contribute to for other families so that they too can afford to come to our school. Our parents are paying on average hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
so everybody makes a contribution in terms of kind of a sliding scale in terms of what families can afford. Really important for everyone to have a sense of equity in this conversation, so that we all share an outcome that's that's very, very progressive and one that advances the interests of these young people's lives.
And they are making changes. Are there some stories that you could tell about maybe somebody starting after a couple of years, starting their own business and how it's flourishing and things like that? Could you do that?
Yeah, what we can start with are some amazing stories about the contributions that our students are making. So one of the stories that you'll find most intriguing is actually the story of a young 14-year-old who finds out that not only has he been accepted to our school, but that he will be working at Parkland Hospital. And the catch here is that Parkland Hospital requires training. The family, when they hear this news, is in California visiting family. And they realize that that training, if their son is going to participate at Parkland, is tomorrow. So they find a way to pack up the car and drive all night in order to get their son back to training, because they recognize their son working at Parkland Hospital is a really big deal. Well, part of that training is CPR, which he performs on his brother 2 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
Saves his life.
Saved his life.
Yeah, but that's not the end of the story. Parkland has targeted 75217 as having twice the national morbidity rate for influenza because nobody wants to take a flu shot. They work with this young 14-year-old to introduce the idea of a flu shot drive to be held on campus one weekend in the fall. Parkland expects to see maybe a dozen families. They get over 450. It catches the attention of Harvard Public Health. And then this student, who's only 14, gets drawn into all kinds of public fora because he has figured out the formula for a student health ambassador, someone that can just help families understand the facts about vaccinations and why they're important. So that's just high school. Can you imagine what his college experience is going to be like as he's sitting around as a 19-year-old now, just graduated last year, and talking about what he did when he was in high school. We have amazing stories, transformational stories of young people. Our valedictorian who took 10 advanced placement courses and got a full ride to Johns Hopkins in pre-med. And of course, that's not the complete story because of the backstory that goes with it, which is a single parent household. Nobody had been on an airplane before. We had to get a notarized guardian to fly her up to Johns Hopkins to receive her scholarship. There's all kinds of stories like this.
Wow.
When we describe this curriculum as transformative, we're talking about it in terms of dollars and cents. And what I mean by that is from our first class, a student that graduates from Marquette, undergraduate in civil engineering, making $95,000 a year now, makes too much money to send one day his students to our school. And so he'll have choices that our families don't. So the transformative part is that he makes too much money and he will not be able to send his kids to our school.
Well, that's a pretty good thing, isn't it, Cedric? Don't you love that? If you're going to
have a problem, I think that's the problem.
That's right? A good problem.
As opposed to the reverse, yes.
Yeah. Well, the reverse that you see is that people are going to college and they're unemployed coming out of college. So they're in debt and they're unemployed.
Right.
And that flies in the face of what we have learned over the course of the value of the college prep experience, which is that without that college degree, students are twice as likely to be unemployed and 4 times as likely to live in poverty. Right. So we recognize that at least the selected degrees, and we've had good success with our students going into degree programs that actually result in a job coming out.
See, that's one of the big things, and I I harp on this, and it probably upsets some people. You want to have this liberal arts education. Okay, that's nice. What can you do with it? What could you do with a liberal arts degree in ancient languages? What could you do with a liberal arts degree in opera? Not a whole lot to make a living. But one of the things that you can do is when you put into a work study type program, you're teaching them to do something and giving them that resume. You made that point, and I'm like, wow, that's what we've even got to look at our college level. Are you giving them an education that will enable them to succeed? Not
So,
just
Jim,
get a job, succeed.
I look at where the incentives are with public money, and that is to fill seats. So it's a push system rather than a demand system. The system that would work best, I think, is the close, tight relationship between industry and universities to understand now these are the requirements, the changing requirements in order to work in corporate America. And that's changed dramatically in the course of just the last 10 years. But I don't think curriculum has seriously been overhauled in a number of decades. And that's where you see this gap between what's offered in universities and yet what's rewarded or incentivized in the corporate America side.
You know, I go back to, in high school, I had a history professor that taught Texas history. He brought it alive. He took everybody that would go on a bus tour all the way down south of San Antonio to a mission down there that was exactly like they were built back in the 1700s. And he took us through the Battle of the Alamo. He brought it alive. History is important because if we don't understand history, then we're going to repeat the mistakes of the past. So I don't want to tear down the statues. I don't want to tear down and ignore history because it's inconvenient or it's unpleasant. I don't want to do away with the Holocaust. I don't ever want it to be repeated again. And that's when you take them in and you walk them through the Holocaust Monument. You walk them through some of these places. So what you're talking about at the high school level is interactive education that gives them a real foundation. I think that was one of the things that happened to me in the Navy was the multiple levels of leadership. And this is one of the other things Cedric and I have talked a lot about is how, and a very good friend of mine who I think you know, Admiral Woody Beale, who is now an American Airlines pilot. Woody Beale in an interview said, Jim, who runs the Navy? I said, the chief petty officers. He said, that's right, because the United States Navy has a leadership program, along with the Army, the Air Force, and all, that takes it all the way down to the bottom. And what you're doing is you're taking that all the way down to the bottom. You're taking that to the place where they really learn. I find that to be absolutely amazing. And I think this is not only your Cristo Rey in Dallas, but there are like 34, 35 of these across the nation.
A total of 41. So this idea starts in the south side of Chicago in the mid-90s. And there is a 60 minutes special that's done on Cristo Rey. And in 60 minutes, if you Google that, you'll get an opportunity to see this 10-minute segment.
We're going to do that. We'll be right back after these messages. Hey, this is a great experience. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. Well, without a doubt, Admiral Walsh, do you have any kids that are going to make it into the Naval Academy?
We're getting close. We've had two compete and do very well. One with the Air Force Academy, and the other to Annapolis. So that's my personal mission is to find students that are so motivated to want that kind of career. I will tell you, the students are really impressive, and I think they are ideally suited for service academies simply because they're anxious and hungry for hard work. They want to have a contribution. They want to make a commitment to the country. One way that I introduce myself to the students each year is I will play the Blue Angel video Dreams, and 7:45 in the morning. So this is Van Halen's video, and it's cockpit video that shows the Blue Angel experience. And then afterwards, I'll give the students a homework assignment of introduce me to yourself, shake my hand, and tell me what is your dream. And if you can't tell me what your dream is, then tell me what you enjoy. The whole idea is to get them a sense of understanding what ticks inside them and what sort of goals that they can come up with. The answers I get, though, are pretty amazing. I want to be a doctor, want to be a lawyer. I want to contribute to the community. I want to be in a profession. And what I've never heard is I want to make a lot of money and leave the neighborhood.
You know what? You're creating victors, not victims.
Exactly.
Because so often in these poverty entrenched neighborhoods that may be African American, they may be Hispanic, they may be other foreign nationalities, or in these enclaves that are foreign nationalities because they come together because of language and cultural, they miss out. They miss out on so much.
Jim, let me tell you, having kids that were in AAU basketball, I now finally understand the parents who were apoplectic in the gym because their student didn't get enough playing time or got fouled or missed a shot or didn't get a rebound. And it's because they have no faith in the education that their students are receiving. And sports is the only ticket out. For us, education is the ticket up.
Maybe in the next election cycle, you could be the Secretary of Education.
Well, I don't know if we will have a Secretary of Education, but that's another topic for
another day. Topic that we'll do. And when three of us have lunch someday, I would like to bring Cedric down and have him see Cristo Rey, because it is an amazing experience to meet these young men and women. It's an amazing experience. And again, I just got to say thank you so much. Fleet Admiral, 4-star Admiral, Fleet Admiral Patrick Walsh, who has absolutely the greatest resume in the United States when it comes to leadership in the military, over 800 landings on an aircraft carrier and a jet, and you are leading the next generation, which is, to me, more amazing than flying an F-18 in a rainstorm onto the flight deck of an aircraft carrier at night. That's a trick too, isn't it?
You're making me nervous just thinking about it. I'm glad I don't have to do that tonight.
Admiral Walsh, I would like to ask before we sign off what you said earlier. I think it would be outstanding, Jim, to have some of your graduates to come on and to literally have them to tell their story, how their story began and where they are today. I think that would be an outstanding show.
Why don't Diane and Cedric and I come to Cristo Rey and you let some of them volunteer and we will do it right there in Cristo Rey? How would that be?
Okay.
All right, let's put that together and make that happen, because we want to enthuse, we want to impart, we want to get more veterans and more people involved in this type of education. Get this kind of hand up instead of a handout. So there's a kid you just mentioned who's making $95,000 a year after just leaving college, I believe you said 4 years ago. And where would he have been without it? Maybe flipping hamburgers, you know?
Typically staying close to home. I mean, there's cultural issues that drive that. And because because this demographic is easily overlooked, it would typically be an hourly wage earner kind of role and responsibility. You
Well-
wouldn't have expected to talk to someone about advanced placement courses, a civil engineering undergraduate degree out of Marquette. It's hard to imagine, but with this opportunity, it happens all the time, and people are seeing it. They're seeing it in the students ahead of them, and they're seeing what it means to them.
Without a doubt. Admiral Walsh, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your inspiration, and thank you for your service. We all three of us are Navy guys, and we hear that all the time. But for me, it was a tremendous honor. And given the opportunity, I would have done it differently. I would have gone to a school that would have prepared me. I would have graduated from college, and I would have been an officer, not because of the difference in officer and enlisted, but because of the learning experience that I could have had and imparted. So, Brother Cedric, would you please take us out with a prayer?
Sure. Thank you. I would have been an officer because of the difference. But anyway, Father, thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this time with Admiral Walsh. Thank you for what he does. Lord, we ask that you continue to bless him, continue to bless Cristo Ray, continue to bless the students that are there, that they will become even more useful in society today. Thank you for all you do. Be with us, be with this nation, and help us to return to being one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's put up our November 11th thing. Admiral Welch, I know you're so busy on Veterans Day, but if you get the opportunity, we'd love to have you come have breakfast with us. And a man you need to meet, if you haven't met him, Captain Dave Carey, United States Navy, POW, survivor of the Oriskany Fire, an A4 pilot, and he led the aggressor squadron in Top Gun school. So thank you for being on board. Thank you for sharing Veterans Impact Show.